then there's the scene that everyone's talking about. And this scene rocks. I love this scene. The music is awesome. He lights his lightsaber and he's like, we have to go. Once more unto thy breach, dear friend. And again, this is liminal space. He lights his lightsaber and he gathers up the clones around him and he walks off. And the music is great. And this is why I think this scene is so important. When we saw the events of Star Wars, we watched it through elites. We're watching it through the leadership of the Jedi Order, the elite of the elite, and how they fail. We're watching it through the eyes of an innocent in Ahsoka Tano. She's a young girl. She's clearly disturbed by the events. She's not comfortable with this. And Anakin's like, we go on anyway. The show must go on. And he marches off and he has his lightsaber off to his side. You see the clones start running past Ahsoka again. And she's watching him. And it's like he's marching off to his fate.
Yes.
The clones, the walkers, the gunships, they all go into an abyss down there, out there, wherever he's headed. And in the explosions of the battle, he turns to Darth Vader for a second with the red lightsaber. And we get to see her reaction. She's horrified.
I loved it. I love it.
Totally.
That was wonderful. Yeah. And it's also, too, just saying how her own fear of possibly going down that route. You know, like if she keeps on going, she could end up like Vader, you know, and I just love that flashing, like, okay, you know, it was just so beautifully done. I definitely love that. Like, this is why I say that, you know, Filoni has really like brilliant ideas. Like, that's brilliant. That was brilliant. That all that creative work there, visually and storytelling wise, really, really great stuff.
Well, because she looks scared watching this, because to me, I'm like, what is she scared of? She knows the outcome. I think the question in her mind in that moment is, how could we have stopped this? What could have stopped this? This is the most heroic man of my generation, and he turned to the dark side. The Jedi Order, this wasn't like society made a wrong turn. The Jedi Order failed. All the democratic institutions failed. All of society failed. It all failed at such a high level. This wasn't this was a catastrophe.
Oh, yeah.
So how do we stop this? And I think that's important, because him marching off to the horizon suggests that he is marching toward his fate from a symbolic standpoint. So that's another central question. So the first question is, are the Jedi meant for war and soldiery? And two, what could we have done to stop it? Could this have been stopped, this course of events, which was so disastrous for the whole galaxy? I thought that was pretty moving and important. I've heard people who are trying to make fun of the show say it's just him and sand. I'm like, no, it's not. There's something archetypally profound in the imagery, and the filmmakers knew it. The composer knew it. Ariana Greenblatt knew it. All the people involved in this sensed the gravity of the scene. So I do think that it was more than just a lucky stroke by the filmmakers.
Yeah, I did cry during this. Sorry, I'm such a wimp. I did. I cried.
I got emotional.
Like, it's Anakin. Oh God.
Yes, because he's so heroic. It is such a loss that he turned to Darth Vader.
See, but this was exactly what I wanted from the prequel movies. I wanted them to break my heart. I wanted them to show him like this in the prequel movies.
That would have been better.
Yeah.
I'm very critical of the prequel movies.
Me too.
I'm very critical of them. And I think you're completely right, Retro Nerd Girl. That kind of thing is what the prequels should have delivered. If they're going to do the fall, they're trying to tell the story of the fall of Anakin Skywalker. That's the kind of thing they should have delivered.
Yeah.
That's what they should have delivered.
Correct.
Like, make him charming and amazing and then break your heart. I mean, because I was like, oh gosh, you know, and unfortunately I think they dropped the ball on that, but this will be enough for me. I think I was like, okay, there's my moment. I got my prequel Anakin there. But
there may be more. There may be more because of what I think
I think so too. I think so too.
So this awesome moment, and by the way, I've rewatched this multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
Just instant Star Wars pleasure, because of the archetypal significance of it. And to make this scene even more powerful to me, it's not just that it flickers and we see him as Darth Vader marching toward the horizon. He comes back as Anakin.
Yeah.
And so we watch him get smaller and smaller. And if you notice, all the clone troopers are missing. It starts with him and a bunch of clones running toward the horizon. The clones are largely dissolved by the time he turns into Vader. So when he comes back to Anakin, he is marching to his fate alone with that lightsaber. He's all by himself out there in no man's land. So in war terms, you don't want to be by yourself out there. And Anakin's alone. So I think there was something about him suddenly being alone as this lone hero, unsupported by his battalions.
And Ahsoka wasn't there. Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't follow him.
Yeah, yeah. And the next scene, she's like, I don't know this particular, where is this, and I don't remember this. And she says, oh, this was, after we separated, the Mandalore, the Siege of Mandalore. And I was like, oh, okay, so yeah, I mean, how that ties in together, like at this point, they're totally separate and going through their own stuff, and she is not there to help him.
That's right. She is by herself. And at this point in the story, if you've watched the Clone Wars, she's not a Jedi anymore in the Siege of Mandalore. Yeah. If you're going to go to war in the Clone Wars, make sure you have a battle buddy.
James says the Clone Wars delivered on that premise. What we were talking about there. But that should have been, okay, maybe so. But that should have been the movies.
That should have been the movies, yeah.
The Clone Wars understood it and got it right. The movies rushed into it. I almost think that the movie should have started with episode 3 and expanded on the Clone Wars the way they did. But, whatever. So real quick, again, Ariana Greenblatt in the Siege of Mandalore, they cut and she's like kicking some serious
she's
ass.
Amazing. Oh my God.
I mean,
she was fantastic. Yeah, I really loved what she did. It was just for a few moments, but she did a lot of the physical. You could see where she's, I'm sure she had a stunt double to help her out, but where you can actually see her face doing the moves. I was like, good job.
Right on. Yeah. Well, they have that. She was, I love actors or actresses that can pull off the physicality that the scenes require. And she delivered in every scene that was asked of her in these very demanding scenes. And then here's where, and there's a cool shot of her and Anakin kind of side by side.
I love it. Yeah, that's cute. Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of the Clone Wars. And she talks about, this is important, and Heath, this will tie into some of the Heroine's Labyrinth because it's direct dialogue. Anakin says, I think I wrote it down even. He goes, Ahsoka, within you will be everything that I am, all the knowledge that I possess, just as I inherited from my master and he from his. You're part of a legacy. This dialogue is sacred, the sacred fire. Heroines are often pressured in a way to follow through on the demands of the native culture.
Oh.
And they resist this. Heroines do not like this because it forces them into a narrow interpretation of what's expected of them. And heroines have their own sacred fire. And in a lot of stories, the heroine claims her sacred fire while the native culture also claims her sacred fire as well. So when Anakin says to her, because remember in the Heroine's Labyrinth, the issue with the native culture and the heroine's sacred fire is continuity. She's expected to pass something on, whether it's family tradition, kids, literally physically kids, tradition, a legacy, something she is expected to carry on. And this narrows her choices. And this is why heroines resist the call of the native culture. This dialogue goes right into that. You are part of this legacy. And she's like, but my legacy, and she says exactly what Baylan Skoll said. My legacy was death and destruction. I don't want to be a part of that legacy. And then Anakin says, and Retro can get into this in a second too, but you're more than that, Ahsoka, just as I am more than that. And when she suggests that, yeah, you're more than that, you're more dangerous than we all thought, he gets pissed at her.
Yeah. He's like, is that what this is about? And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Juicy dialogue.
Yeah, yeah. And I love how they turn him into Darth Vader, because that's what he is. He is a red lightsaber. He's not Anakin. He looks like Anakin, but he's dressed. And he goes, I told you, are you going to live or die? And she goes, she's resistant. She's like, no, I'm not going to answer the question. And if you watch the episode, all the music stops. She goes, no. Silent. And he goes, incorrect. He lights his lightsaber and he comes at her pretty hard, right?
Yeah. And just mind you, she's like a 13-year-old girl.
Yes.
She's very, very, very little. And so I was like, wow, this is pretty intense. And during the battle, he kicks her in the chest. He gives her a Spartan 300 kick in the chest.
This is Spartan.
I was like, wow.
That's awesome. Yeah. He just totally dominates her. Well, she holds her own for a little bit. But this was Vader at the height of his powers. And he makes short work of her and basically boots her right back into the world between worlds.
Wow.
Where they have another very cool fight. In fact, I've seen, you can't help but think it when you watch it, but I've seen on social media the memes of him and Obi-Wan Kenobi in Revenge of the Sith, the famous lightsaber clash scene where the lava shoots up. They juxtapose that with him and Ahsoka having a similar, pretty cool.
Yeah.
But this is the first time we've seen Hayden Christensen Anakin really with that red lightsaber. He didn't have that in Revenge of the Sith. So anyway, she bests him. And I've heard people complain about that, but this is a lesson. He's not trying to kill her. No. He wants her to fight for her life, basically. Like, show that you want this. You know, you want to live. You know, prove it. Beat me. And she has, I think, a pretty cool moment when she says, you know, I choose to live. And she kind of emphasizes it. So, lesson over. He looks at her, and she has that lightsaber right up against his throat. She even leans in and her eyes turn yellow.
Yeah. And
then she backs off. And I thought Hayden Christensen nailed the moment where he's looking at her like, what are you going to do? With the red lightsaber right here. And he's like, what are you going to do? And then when she chooses life, you could see him almost close his eyes and reset. Then he's like, there's hope for you still. So he goes back to redeemed Anakin there. So that showed me, you know, he's capable of both in this. And we have a mentor figure for the first time that has mastered the good side and the dark side. And he gave her a good side lesson and a dark side lesson.